My name's PK. I'm a 16-year-old founder. I'm currently in high school, and my company is Professor AI.
Are you ready to get some feedback?
Yeah, let's do it.
You have a minute. What are you building?
I ended up in a pretty tough spot with my own mental health care. I spent thousands on therapy.
80% of healthcare actually happens outside the clinic.
Your initial touch point is random.
Students don't get the personalized one-on-one help they need to.
We don't really want to make the business model on AI.
That's a minute.
That was a minute?
That's a minute.
Today, if someone wants to go to therapy, they're going to face super high costs.
How do people feel about talking to a bot?
I love the feedback. I love it so much that it just gets me excited.
I love it. That was a great pitch.
Welcome to episode 8 of the Feedback Loop. Quick programming note that this is the second half, the final 4 pitches from a night we filmed last month. And so if you want to see the intros, the initial 4 pitches, or see that context once you get to the takeaways at the end, you can find all of that in episode 7. And while I have your attention, I hope you've been enjoying the Feedback Loop. We'd admire and appreciate you pressing the subscribe button, the like button, and sharing this with your friends to continue to support what we're doing, showcase these founders, their stories, their visions of the future, and overall, and make an impact to the startup and tech ecosystem. All right, with that out of the way, hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
All right, what's your name and your company's name?
Yeah, so my name is Richard Trin, and I'm the co-founder of Secured Health.
You're going to have a minute to pitch. Tell us what it is.
Yeah, so Secured Health, the story started with, unfortunately, my parents, right? So my parents, specifically my dad, passed away in 2022 due to a stroke, and a lot of it was due to not addressing the social determinants of health. You know, that affects over 90 million Americans on an annual basis. And the saying is 80% of healthcare actually happens outside the clinic, and major health plans right now are racing to try to reduce the $3.7 trillion in annual healthcare costs. And a lot of that's due to lack of engagement from health plan members. So, you know, the current solutions in the space, they're either solely digital, which lacks that human touch component for a high needs population, or they're solely service-based, which is super hard to scale. So here at Secured Health, we actually utilize AI to help triage to see which health plan members, need help addressing a specific social need, whether it's food insecurity, transportation, or even a language barrier to get them into care. So, current traction is we're talking to major health plans and health systems such as United Healthcare.
That's a minute.
Yeah, that was a minute.
That's a minute.
Good job. All right, I'm going to give you some feedback at the beginning. There was a lot of numbers. So I can only remember one number. That's it. That's all my brain can remember. You threw 3 or 4 numbers at me.
Yeah.
It's unnecessary. When you're dealing with something with a huge market like healthcare, you don't have to prove the TAM. That's the least of your problems in a 1-minute pitch, right? Yeah. So it took you a really long time to get into what the product is. I'm still not sure what it is, but what the problem is. You got to get in it and forget all the jargon and the numbers. So tell us very concisely what the product does.
Yeah, so the product does, so it identifies the social determinant of health that the member suffers from. So like food insecurity, could be trouble getting to doctors because of language barriers.
Member of what before?
A member of a health plan. So like United Healthcare, Blue Cross Blue Shield. So it identifies what need they have that's preventing them from getting the care they need. And based on that, we can determine whether the member actually needs a community health worker or another social resource deployed to help address that need.
If someone has United Healthcare, do they have food insecurity as well?
So a decent amount of the members, specifically in the Medicaid space, they do. So it's whether it's food insecurity or transportation, one of those barriers is usually...
So who's paying for the United Healthcare? Because that's quite expensive.
Yeah, so it's actually from the United Healthcare, the health plan itself would be paying for it. And also the health systems also have an incentive to be tied into this as well.
But those people are getting United through the government?
Yeah, so Medicaid, yep.
Got it, okay. So this is another Medicaid play, got it.
Yeah.
I guess... What are the triggers that you would use to understand some of these? Because some of them sound ambient, right? Like United Healthcare doesn't necessarily, I guess they could see inactivity, but they don't know what the cause is. How would you help them identify that cause?
Yeah, so we on the platform to onboard them. So whether they're getting discharged from the hospital or whether at the local YMCA or local church, so they complete a health risk assessment. So based on those responses, we determine what their basic health needs are. So like chronic illnesses, but also what are the social barriers in place, right? So for example, do you suffer from transportation issues? Do you suffer from food insecurity or housing insecurity? And based on those, we can curate a specific journey to help address that.
So your initial touch point is random. Not in a bad way, but like when you said it's...
So from the hospital perspective, it would be the people that are getting discharged from the hospital. So,
okay.
Yep. So the social worker will onboard them to the platform. And then from the health plan perspective, we do have a list of targeted members they want us to reach out to.
If they're doing it from the hospital, the social worker is employed by the hospital or by who?
It's right now it's gonna be from our team, but eventually with a lot of waivers in place, like the 1115 waiver, we're actually able to work with, like, for example, the YMCA. They're hiring community health workers right now to tackle these challenges within their community. So based on like which geographical area they're from, we would work.
Why
with
would they be incentivized to like want to engage with this sort of product?
Yeah, so it's really cool with the 1115 waiver, the CBO, so the community-based organizations, they could get paid directly for closing these gaps as well and addressing the needs.
How?
So based on, for example, if they were collecting a health risk assessment, if they coordinated care, they could actually charge a fee for that from the health plan.
From the health plan.
Yep.
Automatically.
Exactly.
So it's like it's a preordained fee that like the health plan's already agreed to in theory.
So right now it's a delicate space because the 1115 waivers are currently being pushed in certain states. For example, Pennsylvania recently pushed it out, and I don't want to say the health plan on camera right now, but there's one in Pittsburgh. They're pushing out $5 million on an annual basis to pay out like the churches, the YMCA's, the community centers in the city to address this need. And it's not random, so it's based on like performance levels to hit certain tiers.
This is where I think like you have a business model arbitrage here that wasn't clear to me until I asked those series of questions. And so I'd focus, because it's clearly, that sort of a business model arbitrage, that needs to be almost the beginning or the beginning middle of your pitch. Whereas like, here's the thing that we're taking advantage of where we can help a bunch of unincentivized individuals in this ecosystem really have incentives to help each other and through software make that easier, better, faster, et cetera. And that'll really wrap things together.
And I'll just add, the story about, your personal story doesn't exactly fit in with this. So I think that was a little bit of a distraction. Because I think it's a different demographic that we're talking about.
Is that true? Like, that's Jenny's point. I think that was her initial set of questions too, right? There was a Medicare startup that pitched the other week. So I feel like I got a little bit of this context. You're specifically targeting people who are outside of normal healthcare, or not normal, of let's call it good practice health engagement.
But so my dad definitely fell into that group. So he was an immigrant, didn't speak, English was a second language, and he was also on Medicaid. So for him, health literacy and like that's, English as a second language was always a barrier. Whenever he went to the doctors or.
So this is where the founder the other week, I think, I don't mean to say this, in an aggressive way, but did a little bit of a better job than you in explaining this problem. Because he talked about Medicare brokers and agents and how even they struggle to get their clients to use prescription health plans. Were you there for that one?
I wasn't, but I invest a lot in health, and it is all about incentives, and that's how I'd start your story.
Yeah, and you can tie that together a little more.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for the feedback.
Absolutely. Good luck. Great mission, all of these companies trying to help what I understand to be like I didn't understand how large the problem of not engaging your benefits was for the older audience or demographic, where they just don't do it for reasons that are trivial almost.
Yeah, and what an opportunity it is for all these companies that can actually help the brokers and the health plans make sure that people are engaging and using the services and be, outcome oriented.
Is all of the things you'd fear about a startup like this from an investment perspective, about like regulatory, GTM, all that sort of thing? If they figured that out, then it's an easy bet.
Healthcare's never easy.
Never easy. All right, let's bring our next founder up. Round of applause.
What's up, guys?
Hello. All right. What is your name and your company's name?
My name is Purdue Kandala, PK for short, and my company is Professor AI.
Professor AI, are you ready to give us your minute pitch and get some feedback?
Yeah, let's do it.
You have a minute. What are you building?
Sounds good. What's up, guys? My name is PK. I'm a 16-year-old founder. I'm currently in high school from Seattle, Washington. And we're trying to solve the problem of lack of help for standardized test courses. Right now, most students don't know how to self-study effectively. Teachers are extremely busy. They have about 300 students to worry about in the classroom. Tutors are crazy expensive, about $40 to $120 an hour. And students don't get the personalized one-on-one help they need to, especially in advanced curriculum like AP courses, where they need much more tailored support. And so what we're trying to do is build a personalized AI tutor for the standardized curriculum. We take LLMs and pre-train them on AP course curriculum, rubrics, and data to actually help students do better on their tests. Our biggest differentiator is that we are hyper-personalized to the user. We gather data about the user and their learning styles and their teachers' teaching styles to alter LLM outputs to better resonate with the user and what they're actually building. Traction to date, we have about 50K in contracts and about 300K's worth of LOIs, and we have about 350 to 400K raised.
Good job.
Okay, everyone needs to applaud the 16-year-old crushed it today.
Fantastic.
I love it. That was a
Fantastic
great pitch. Awesome. Where did you learn to pitch like that? Have you been practicing?
Have been practicing for sure. Just doing it enough times, talking to enough people. I feel
All
like
right.
you're
And what
gonna
brings
learn.
you to New York from Seattle?
We're part of Antler's residency program. So Antler's an accelerator. We're one of 70 companies out of like 8,000 applications just got in. So we've been living here by ourselves for the past 2 months, just learning how to cook eggs and build a company at the same time. And,
And clean your apartment?
exactly. Yeah.
I have to tell you, this is the second week in a row we have super young founders, and super young founders are just starting to outpace everybody else because I think you are an example of taking advantage of resources, community that didn't exist, 20 years ago for someone to go, oh, I'm young and want to do this. Now founders like this can actually go, well, I have the aptitude. I'm driven enough already. I don't need to wait. I'm just going to get started.
And I love that your parents will just ship you off to New York. It's badass.
I assume they're very proud.
I hope so.
Okay, so tell us a little bit. You said, what makes you different or defensible, but what are you actually building on? Are you just using kind of the traditional Chat GPT, or what? Give us, one layer deeper.
Yeah, 100%. So we're model agnostic. We're using ChatGPT, Claude, Mistral, all these different models, and pre-training them on like textbook content, along with like the rubrics for AP advanced placement courses. You have to, in the AP test, the rubrics are very, very specific in terms of how you have to format questions and answer questions. And so we're pre-training these models and all this different data so students can get help on these. And then we've also created like library systems full of study guides by the unit and subunit for them to get help on. Practice tests by the unit. So when they take a Unit 3 test, in AP World, for example, they can go use our platform to practice and study before going to their real thing. Flashcards.
I get all that, but as we see, like OpenAI and all these companies are releasing like incredible information. Like, didn't we just see some of the language chaining, companies basically being displaced in like one new release? So I'm
Foundational models being really aggressively
I'm really
improved.
a little bit worried about what comes next.
100%. I think that's where our niche really shines. All of these guys, Khan Academy is coming out there, new AI. Google just came out with Learn LM, right? ChatGPT is 4.0, right? The interactive models, they're super cool. The issue with these is even if ChatGPT can give you a right answer, to be able to format that in AP specific format is very different. And even if the content is right, if it's not formatted properly, the answer is still wrong. And so we think by building tools that are very, very niche specific that can help people with IB, for example, IB and A levels, they're very, very difficult curriculum that have their own specialized tests that they need specialized tools to help for. And so we're trying to focus on these niches and build those niche specific tools instead of working and targeting these like broader audiences.
So pitch feedback, I think living almost entirely, you had a great pitch, but like living almost entirely in that for at least 10, 15 seconds of let me acknowledge the inevitable Jenny point that anyone, and that would have been my first question too, is going to bring up of, okay, here's how we think of using the models. Here's how we think of foundational models cannibalizing us. Make that part of your story because really sophisticated investors want you to already acknowledge that you're going to deal with that problem and know how you're going to deal with it.
And then you can just go right to the why you're going to win. And it sounds like you already have contracts. But if I spend the whole time going, oh, this is just a wrapper, they're going to be displaced, you're losing me in the engagement.
100%.
Yeah, just check that box already. But now, to engage also a little bit closer, I think I get the workflow difference that's going to provide you, let's not call it a moat, but something like a moat. How do you think you can demonstrate that in this sort of a conversation? I remember taking AP stuff, but I was not a big studier, so I don't know exactly how. And you said something about driving people who don't self-study. That was interesting to me. But visualize a little bit for us, and it might be difficult today, but like I want to know what your product is going to look like in 3 to 5 years from a UX perspective to give me that idea that you're going to actually have that moat. And I get the AP card thing and or the format and the output, constraining it. Is there anything else as far as your workflow, your little user experience that you think really is going to keep you differentiated long term?
100%. And that's where I think our hyper personalization comes into play. So essentially what we're doing is we're gathering data about like the students' extracurriculars, their hobbies, how they learn, how their teacher teaches them. Is their teacher more lecture heavy, homework heavy, etc.? And then we want to alter LLM output. So essentially, let's say a student is a soccer player and they're they're learning physics right now, right? And they're more of a visual learner. Instead of giving them blocks of text, we're providing them with like videos and graphs and images to reference. But more importantly, we're using examples to help them resonate with this concepts that they're trying to learn. So we would say like, hey, pretend you pass a soccer ball to your friend and your friend passes it back to you. Similarly, an atom gives a proton to another atom and that atom gives a neutron back to you and stuff like that to help them like resonate with the user better. And I think the bigger issue of this is like students get 6 new teachers every single year. They get a new guidance counselor every couple of years. They move to a different location, they get a new tutor. And so how do you mimic a tutor in a virtual setting?
Oh, this has to be part of your pitch. That's such a good
that
line.
is stagnant to across like the years of what they're doing and that builds upon you. So if we can keep on gathering data about the user like year over year over year that can learn and adapt with them while helping them with this much more difficult curriculum, I think we can build a really cool data mode over time.
That has to be a portion of your pitch. I really started to resonate, I think, a lot more in that moment. Because again, the core concept, a lot of people are going to be empathetic.
100%.
Bring that differentiation. Great job.
Thanks
well
so
done.
much.
Great job on the problem.
Appreciate your time.
What was I doing when I was 16?
Not that.
I was
right?
not that.
It's just incredible to see.
It's incredible.
The reality, again, I think is like, unlike other times when that would have had to truly been someone reaching across an impossible threshold of information and process symmetry. Now, a 16-year-old and 18-year-old can decide if I'm ambitious enough, I can do the homework.
But can they have beer at the office?
That's a great question. With that in mind, let's bring the next founder up. Round of applause.
Hey, what's going on, you guys? Thanks for having me up.
Absolutely. Glad to have you up here. What's your name and what's your company's name?
My name is Grant, and the company is Yuna.
Yuna. All right. Are you ready to give us your 1-minute pitch?
Absolutely, man. Let's do this.
Let's do it. You have a minute. Tell us, what are you building?
Yeah. So, in 2019, I sold my company, and I ended up going through a breakup sort of right after that. And so I ended up in a pretty like tough spot with my own mental health care. So that year, I spent thousands on therapy to recover and heal. And today, if someone wants to go to therapy, they're going to face super high costs. It's $165 an hour, or they're going to face 5 to 6 week waiting lines just to get help. And so what we did is we've come together to build a company called Yuna, which is a therapeutic style conversation on your phone that you can talk to that talks back. It is 1% of the cost, and it can bring help to people who need it at 2 a.m. And unlike anything else in the marketplace, we also allow creators to come and bring their content and their likeness into the Yuna app, making it really stand out and actually get care from the people that they care about online.
Well done.
Thanks.
Nice. So this is not a super new idea. I've looked at lots of these companies over the years. So I'd love, to understand a little bit more about why this is the moment for this company. And I think in your pitch, I'm sure you have a great answer. You really need that why now, because I would say every week I get pitched something in mental health and then some variation of, whether it's support groups or direct texting with therapists and the like. So I think, distinguishing yourself, at least with an investor who kind of knows the space, would be really important.
I think that's really good feedback. In fact, I think that what happened in 2016 and beyond, these companies like Wiza and Wobot and others came out, but they used a rule-based technology. Obviously, that's an older technology, but they are also FDA approved in an as-is status. And so for them to reinvent their business is unlikely. But on the other side, too, we see this new willingness for a consumer to actually interact with an AI model and receive care in an interesting new way. And so with the consumer shift happening, that's made mental health chatbots now a $1.2 billion marketplace, but behavioral healthcare is a multiple $100 billion market. And so does that make sense that today it's only 1% of the behavioral health marketplace? I think what we're going to see over the next 5 years is one of the biggest transitions from the behavioral health market being a few $100 billion moving into this new space. And we're going to be a big part of that.
Tell us more about how the product works, literally.
Yeah, so for a user, they download Yuna and they can instantly have just a conversation about whatever they're going through, whether it's a breakup or some other life soft skill. What's exciting to us is that there are creators in the marketplace, whether they are really well-known therapists or creators. We allow them to come into the platform and bring their likeness as well as an overview of their content. And then what we have is custom models that are actually delivering therapeutic care And we also do this in a way that it like generates more in high quality proactive outreach based on the material they've shared within the app so far.
I guess, is that the main part of the product, do you imagine the creator portion of the product and the creator likeness driving, is that 95% of your engagement versus your core personas and behavior systems? Or is it, hey, this is a cool go-to-market and that's going to be 15% of that long-term engagement?
I think it's really valuable to establish a winner in the marketplace. So we think that from a go-to-market standpoint, it's very valuable, and it gets someone interacting in this new environment and feeling safe. But I think it's actually going to be about the usage of just the general model inside the app.
Isn't it its own startup though to bring a creator onboard all of their likeness and persona and get that right and get it to be excellent? Isn't that by itself a challenge separate from everything else that you're trying to accomplish?
We think right now we're doing things that don't scale in that way, but we think that there's a model to actually make that very scalable so people can come and onboard themselves in more of a white label format. And what's exciting today is that we have thousands of users on the app, and most of the time they're actually already in therapy, but they use Yuna in between their sessions to get ongoing care and maintenance for low cost. So that's something that's very exciting to us, because that we've heard this swelling of demand from therapists to want to offer low-cost care in between sessions. And so to the extent that we can make that much easier to build for a creator or a therapist, there's a lot of value there.
How do people feel about talking to a bot?
So originally our hypothesis was that they would be apprehensive, and I think that is a good reflection of the past. As we move into a new future state, people are much more comfortable interacting with a bot than they have been in the past. And I see a future in 5 years where it's completely normalized. And so having a bot where you have personalized therapy in your pocket makes a lot of sense. And the other thing too is that sometimes people experience a lot of anxiety actually going to see a human therapist, and it prevents care. An AI environment is a safer, lower risk place to get started. And to that extent, we also are making sure that we're triaging care. And if we need to, we can escalate their care pathway into a human-based experience.
Super interesting. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I wonder when the first case of liability is going to come up of an AI, then there's creator-driven AI, whether it's in this space of therapy or something else, where who in that moment is responsible, the platform or the content that was used to generate in that moment, piece of advice. A super interesting space.
You ready for your therapy bot? Think on that.
I'll think
Let's
on it.
get our
I'll think on it. Next founder up.
next victim.
Thank you. I think I might need a therapy bot for the anxiety of following that up.
There you
Thank you,
go.
Grant.
Nice.
You're good. What's your name?
My name is Benjamin Bridell.
Okay, cool. And tell us what you're up to, Ben.
Hi, my name is Benjamin Bridell, and my company is called Kuvera. Kuvera is the Hindu god for prosperity and wealth. Me and my technical co-founder have created a career management platform that helps 88 million white-collar professionals in the United States navigate the treacherous waters of the career path. Whether it's a layoff, an outsourcing effort, COVID, or AI, the idea of a stable career no longer exists. What we do is we help professionals obtain employment, understand what compensation, what are RSUs, NSOs, ISOs, grow in their career vertically and horizontally, and lastly, protect their career. Ultimately answering the question, what if HR worked for you?
Oh, well done. What if HR worked for you? I'll go second. You go first.
No, this is
Me?
all you, dude.
Okay. So I don't know if you know what I do. Free agency. It's Hollywood-style representation for job search. So the reverse of a recruiter, but through the form of a talent agent. So I get all the value props. How does the notion of everything you just mentioned get output? Is it just generalized AI advice? What's the literal throughput?
Yeah, great question. So a little bit of AI, but we don't really want to make the business model on AI. Like we really want to be and create a ecosystem, a platform. You can almost think of it as like Fidelity. When you go to Fidelity, you manage your financial health, your stocks, your bonds, your IRA, your 401k. We want to be your career health. So in the pocket of every white collar professional of like a glance of, hey, what is my career like? And we want to be an ecosystem and a platform. So yes, there is AI a part of it, but it's really anything related to your career, all of those job seeking resumes and everything, that's just a component of it. That is the French fries when you go to the burger joint. We want to be able to provide everything.
But what does that look like? So let's say a product manager is using it and they log in and they see.
Yeah, great question. So if a product manager is logging in and from start to finish, they'll have the opportunity to engage in a job tracker and then the resume optimization and the cover letter and really first start that journey. From there, we'll coach them through the entire interview process with generative AI. Import who are you interviewing? What do they like? What are the questions that they're going to answer? What are they going to ask you? Once you get that job offer, we've identified over 40 different levers that affect compensation, whether it's your healthcare. Only 9% of individuals understand their healthcare completely. And when it comes to your offer, can you negotiate that? Only 50% of white collar professionals actually negotiate their salary. So if we can help men and women and individuals make more money, I want to do that, and we want to do that, and we want to help people.
Who are you selling into exactly? Who's your customer?
Yeah, great question. So there's a few different markets that we're going to be working with. One is the business to consumer, anyone who is looking for a job. And then ultimately, another market is the business to business, partnering up with universities, with their admissions office, their career centers to help them navigate the students' transition from the academic world into the career. Like these are our career starters. We're going to help those individuals as well as career changers, career advancers, and then the career protectors. Individuals have been working in their career for 20 or 30 years, and that's like that business to consumer and also the business to business of outplacement services. In 2020, the amount of companies that laid off individuals, if a company had a service like Kuvera to help them just offboard or outplace individuals, they would pay for that PR. They didn't want to. Like I was one of those individuals that got laid off and I was unemployed, and I wish at that time I had something like this.
I think the challenge you're going to have, I'm being, kind of the cynical person from the industry in the room, everything you said has been done before, right? And so there's Teal, I had Job Hero back in the day. There's the one that I can't remember the name of that like for a while existed, whether it's the job search tracker, which is its own version of a dead end from a monetary perspective, whether it's the coaching, which is a super challenging and interesting area from an AI perspective. And I think someone's going to figure that portion out, whether it's career analysis, which I think is probably overrated, generally speaking. Negotiation, sure, if someone has all of the data and can purchase and buy all the right data, there's a product there. But the sum of all of your parts is actually the thing that people have tried. Not like every individual, yes, also every individual part, but even the sum. And people always get stuck somewhere along the way of, is a careerist willing enough to use it, willing enough to hopefully pay for it, willing enough to engage with it on an ongoing basis? Success churn is a huge thing with these products. I know you're not focused just on a job search, but the notion of someone managing their career, the flaw that I've seen with those products is people aren't actively looking to manage something that is relatively passive. Where the ability that you have to take action every single day is quite limited. So I think you're going to run into some of those challenges. But again, I'm the cynic from the industry. So
yeah, I love the feedback. Like I love it so much that it just like, it gets me excited because people have taken it. You know, High Counselor, Job Scan, Teal HQ, amazing product folks. Actually, shout out to my co-founder who was employee number 1 at WeWork, who had built that company to $47 billion, who is a coworker of Teal's CEO.
Right.
So we're learning all of that and we're incorporating that feedback loop. Just because it hasn't been done successfully, it just absolutely motivates me to help every single person out here. Why can't we have something? If a company has an applicant tracking system, why don't we have a job tracking system that we use every single day? If we can make more money, if we can provide for our family, it absolutely excites me. So I love the feedback. I appreciate it so much.
He said he's going to integrate the feedback loop. Well done. Well, round of applause for all the founders who pitched. Okay, let's start with takeaways. That was fun. What are the takeaways?
What was interesting about this cohort, very personal and very mission driven, right?
Very personal.
Felt very personal, and I love that. So I could feel everyone was like literally oozing with their own stories.
The seat moved a lot
it did
for the
move
pitches.
A lot.
Yeah.
So I love that. I would say that's on the positive. A little bit on the more critical would be, I didn't feel like many of these ideas were groundbreaking or things that were, super new or innovative. They were iterations on what we've seen, and maybe using better technology and better go-to-market, they have a real shot, and so that's exciting. But I didn't feel like I was leaning in like, oh, I've never heard something like this.
Right. I agree. I think that's also, it's pitch feedback in addition to being concept feedback. And I think on the pitch side, a lot of them got me more interested the further down their product funnel they went. I think a lot of these folks, it was second 40, second 45 before we got past the problem statement, the mission statement, the personal pain point, and got into the product. And that limits an investor's ability or a consumer's ability, a partner, an employee's ability to get to their own version of why this thing is important, which I think is challenging because you can almost work backwards from hearing some of the user experience into, oh, and this is why this is important in the world. But if you're only listening to the founder's narrative and nothing about the product, then you have to subscribe to that specific narrative to be bought in. And so I'd say, hey, get closer, 20 seconds in, 30 seconds in, and you're in the product, or you're probably too late.
I like starting with something radical. So whether it's like a great customer win or some traction or, I don't know, something that feels a little edgy, I think sometimes that can really work on a pitch. So
Yeah. All right, Jenny, let's do it. What was your favorite pitch?
I don't know. You go first. I got to think on that one.
I think PK, from a pitch perspective, impressive individual and young person in the world perspective, but also I believe in this tutoring space quite a bit. The things that he started to get into around the companion portion of it, or like the learning over time, I think those are the things that will make a product in this space stand out of like true personalization. Because as the foundational models improve, they'll be able to relatively personalize. They'll be able to give you answers in AP or IB. They'll be able to do some of the stuff he initially talked about. But as he got more into it, my product brain began to run, as it does when pitch is hitting. If that thing can really be attached to how you do work, how people are giving you feedback as you're in school, how your teachers are talking about you. And I loved that when he had that moment of saying, we switch guidance counselors and teachers and principals and this and that, like, oh, what a great point. The companion portion, yes, again, the foundational models will be able to do some of, but if you structure that correctly, if the app portion of that LLM fueled product is done really, really well and excellently, then I think that can be a difference maker in making the LLM output that much better.
Yeah, so I think best pitch definitely goes to our young friend. I'm really hoping that the therapist bot works. I think a lot of people are suffering. I totally agree with the thesis. Too expensive to access care. And the truth is, getting appointments can take weeks, can take months, and that's, not going to help us. So I hope that works.
Yeah, me too. We can all root for a lot of these pitches today. There's a lot of great mission-driven founders. Well, with that, everybody, that's the feedback loop. We're not going to do audience choice again. We just moved, so we're technologically behind today. But thank you so much for coming. We do this every Monday. If you aren't already subscribed, we're posting these on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, your favorite platform, whatever it might be. And these are every Monday in this new office here on 19th Street. So we hope to see you for the next episode of The Feedback Loop. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.